I want to share a few thoughts this morning about assumptions and letting go. And I want to reflect for a few minutes on the nature of relationships, a place we often talk about. Today I want to emphasize the limits of understanding that happen in our relationships and the peace that comes from really looking at them through more of the lens of mystery. And this really aligns with teachings on impermanence, on teachings on not self, and especially on the dangers of attaching to specific views. You know, the practice gives us a lens through which we can approach our interactions with others and our understanding of the world. And what I mean by that is, trying to truly understand others and seeing that as a noble effort, which stems from empathy, compassion, and most importantly, the wish to connect. And this desire, though, from a Buddhist perspective, is limited or bound by the limitations of perception and the inherent nature of individuality. So what I mean by that is that all experience is viewed, including our relational experiences, through our own individual unique filters, which are shaped by our own actions, our mental formations, our habits of mind, and so forth. These filters, which we each have and we're usually not conscious of, create a deeply personal to each of us, and it makes it impossible for us to ever fully grasp the perspective of another person. Because we tend to see and experience them through our own filters. If you think about two siblings raised in the same environment can emerge with vastly different interpretations and memories of their childhood. One of the axioms in my field of psychology is that every child in a family has different parents, by which we mean, because of differences of temperament, both of the child and the parent, which are largely genetically determined. And then we have things like birth order, the parent's developmental trajectory, the fit between the parent and the child emotionally, and on and on. So we talk about any two siblings having a markedly different experience of their parents. And we can understand this from a Buddhist perspective in terms of the concept of dependent origination, which states that everything arises due to this complex web of causes and conditions. Every one of us comes of age with a different set of causes and conditions, regardless of having the same parents, the same environment, and so forth. And what I'm referring to are the influences that I just mentioned: parental influences, temperamental influences, and so forth. Each person's mind, each of our minds is shaped by this intricate interplay of past experience, habits of the mind, choices, all of which make each of our realities distinctive. Okay, none of us are the same. To believe that we can fully know another person is to cling to some illusion of permanence and fixed identity. The idea that you never change, I never change, and therefore I can really know you. But the Buddha would argue that we need to let go of that. We need to set that aside, because we may think we can deeply understand each other, but we really can't, just based upon our perceptions, our assumptions, and our impressions. And this really resonates with our practice of cultivating humility and openness, not thinking we always have the final version of what's going on. In Zen, we call this, the Zen practitioners, our Zen friends call this beginner's mind, as you know, which encourages us to approach life, and particularly the people in our lives, with curiosity, free from preconceived notions, free from preconceived assumptions about that person. Because by embracing the mystery of each moment, we let go of the need to always figure people out, put them in a box, impose our interpretations on their experiences. This practice of not knowing, of going into these encounters with others with beginner's mind, can really be transformative, because when we stop assuming that we know each other, that we understand each other, when we drop these assumptions, then we create space for really getting to know each other, for really creating genuine connection. Because instead of projecting our own biases onto each other's words and actions, we listen deeply to what that other person is saying. We listen deeply to get to know them. And this is really the essence of right speech and right mindfulness, two of the components of the Eightfold Path, because these teachings remind us to engage with others free from judgment and to focus on being fully present with each other rather than being right or thinking we really know each other. And this may seem like sort of a radical idea, but it really does go to the heart of the teachings, because the teachings challenge us to avoid making assumptions about what others think or thinking or feeling, because those assumptions are a function of our individual filters. In other words, assumptions are a form of attachment. We attach to the notion that I'm this way, you're this way, whatever, to ideas, to beliefs, to my perception of who you are. And this can lead to suffering, because these assumptions often create expectations that can't be met. I impose on you expectations about how I think you should be. It's a form of attachment. And it can create suffering when you don't fulfill that reality that I've created. So for instance, when I assume that someone understands me completely, I set myself up for disappointment when they fail to do so, when their actions reveal otherwise. So the solution is to put it down or let it go, drop the assumption. And this aligns with the Buddha's teachings on renunciation, which involves letting go of attachments that weigh us down. I'm not talking about renunciation where we, wear a robe and go live in a cave. I'm talking about renunciation that involves letting go of attachments that weigh us down and cause us suffering. By releasing our need to control or fully comprehend others, we free ourselves from the mental burdens of frustration, disappointment, and misunderstanding. If I make no assumptions about how you should be or how you should treat me, then I'm open and receptive to whatever you offer. Now, this is not an act of indifference, but this is really an act of wisdom, because it allows us to approach life and each other with more lightness and even with more humor. What if we try to be blissfully content with the mystery of it all? In Buddhism, this is akin to the practice of equanimity, a state of inner balance and acceptance, when we stop clinging to certainty and answers, and we open ourselves to the vastness of life's unfolding, especially in our relationships. And it doesn't mean we stop caring. It doesn't mean we stop trying to understand each other. It just means we keep an open mind. We don't enter into our interactions with each other filled with assumptions about who the other person is. We approach life with a belief, with the awareness that some things are simply beyond our comprehension. The metaphor of the river, which we talked about again on Wednesday, in which it cannot be touched the same way twice, is a reminder of the impermanence of all things. Life is in constant flux, and so are people. We are each in constant flux. But how often do we stereotype or pigeonhole people and never change our view of them? Oh, so-and-so is always that way. That's just the way they are. That's just who so-and-so is. Well, maybe, that's a function of our own filter, our own projection, our own past relationships, And what about, how do we let go of these perceptions? How do we come to them with a curiosity, with an openness? And what about when we do this to ourselves, when we believe our own stories again and again and think that defines who we are? By accepting the truth that people, including ourselves, are in a constant state of change and flux, we begin to achieve peace in the midst of change and uncertainty, a fundamental part of this path. And this perspective is not only liberating, it is deeply practical, because it allows us to navigate our relationships with greater patience, greater humility, with don't know mind, with some humor and compassion, rather than frustration, disappointment, and rigidity, because you're not who I think you are, who I think you should be. And the bottom line here for ourselves individually is not to take ourselves so seriously. As if we know what is best for, or know what for others, or even for ourselves. The Buddha emphasized the importance of balance, the middle way on the spiritual path. While earnestness and diligence are necessary, so are joy, humor, and a sense of perspective and openness. When we laugh at our own misunderstandings, when we laugh at our misperceptions of each other, when we laugh at the quirks of human nature, it creates a spaciousness in our hearts. We're not so locked down. And that allows wisdom and compassion to flourish. So the challenge becomes, can we set an intention to reject what we think we know about others, what we think we know about the world, and embrace the mystery of life? This is really the essence of Buddhism, because it invites us to move beyond the limitations of our ego, of the limitations of all the assumptions that we carry, and we carry buckets of assumptions, all the attachments that we cling to, and find freedom in the moment, especially when we're in relationship. So we transform misunderstandings and conflicts, go from that to growth and connection. In the end, the realization that so much of what weighs us down isn't even ours to carry is both a call to action and a reminder of the Buddha's teachings. So much of what weighs us down isn't even ours to carry. Liberation is not found in accumulating knowledge or clinging to certainty or surety. It is in letting go of what no longer serves us. And that includes all the assumptions we make about the world and especially about each other. As we lay down our assumptions, as we embrace the mystery, we find ourselves lighter, freer, and more at peace with the ever-changing flow of life. And perhaps we even find ourselves laughing along the way. So those are some thoughts this morning on assumptions and letting go.